podcast.
This is Movie Mondays. Welcome. Today we have a very special host, Mr. James Edmonds himself,
Thank you.
director and producer of something. Anyway, I want to ask you a few questions, James.
Right.
So, how did you attract just your audience in your film?
Well, to start with, we have the narrative form. Now, it's in a non-linear order, and obviously our audience is between the ages of 20 to 35. So, with our narrative form, we wanted to go along this idea of a Todorow's narrative, which is equilibrium, and then something goes wrong, and then the equilibrium is restored. So it goes in this way. However, we wanted to put our own spin on it. So this is why the actual start of the opening of our film is actually set between the second and third act of the story. So we put our own spin on this narrative form, and we feel this is how we wanted to attract our audience. So we did this. I mean, we looked at film directors like Quentin Tarantino. He's a big inspiration of mine, and he uses this non-linear form a lot in his movies, and he uses these long takes, which attracts sort of an older audience between probably about 30 and 50s, much older than what we wanted. But we took inspiration from him anyway, because this non-linear form he uses attracts the audience we want. As for our actual story, it's actually inspired like loosely off true events in a way. Obviously, like how people in World War II developed like nuclear bombs, weapons of like mass destruction, and then it led them to this sort of depression, like insanity in a way, and they just couldn't deal with their regrets, and a lot of them ended up killing themselves, getting diagnosed with mental illnesses. So we use this sort of real life thing that actually happens, and we took this and we gave our own spin on it. We set it in like modern times with like a modern character, and it gives this sort of unique take on what is used quite a lot.
Well, very clever.
As for like camera shots, we had a lot of feedback. So the feedback was that like the trancing doesn't fit, and like I agree with this myself quite a lot. But as for like the mise en scene, other than that, we used the house of Seam's house as our location, which attracts this audience between like 20 and 35. They see this like glamorous sort of lifestyle, they're intrigued. However, they don't really realise what's behind it. This sort of mysterious, depressed character that they see in the opening, and it's quite intriguing for that audience. Like, it makes them want to know what's going on, because someone who lives in a house like this, by social like stereotypes, shouldn't be unhappy. But this is how we like sort of attracted our audience, by putting this twist on it, and that's what gets them intrigued. Like the camera shots, we used a lot of wide shots, isolated the character. We found this like, we got this sort of inspiration from looking at Imitation Game, and I forget the name of it, Silence of the Lambs, I think was another one. Just other thriller movies, and just tried to put our own, like I said before, our own spin on it in our own way, because we wanted to create our own style. And what this gave us is this effect of sort of almost like it's isolation. I don't know the word for it, but it's quite good. I quite like it. And the research told me that when you get this sort of like this real life issue like depression or the suicide that you see, it gives this audience something to latch onto, something to like relate to in a way, and it's quite effective. Yeah. As for the elements of like the narrative theory that have like took me to this point, other than Todorow's, I'd say that Strauss's theory, where like the two opposing forces, good and evil, whatever it is, and not sort of the imagery that is related between those. We sort of took inspiration from that. That's how we used the lighting. So as soon as you come out of the trance, which I don't really like, don't fit, found that from the feedback, but as soon as you come out of that, you see this sort of, I mean, the light's supposed to be bright, but the light isn't bright. It's shining on his face. It's sort of like a shaded orangey light. It's quite antagonising. But even though he is the protagonist, it's quite like telling of his emotional state.
Right, would you be able to give me a bit more about that mise en scène? You know, it's quite interesting.
Yeah. So the mise en scene, stuff like so what we did was we got like weapons plans and just like these fake sort of things, and like military stuff. And we like used like a black highlighter to go over it, and we just threw it all across the tables, and we made it look as if, oh yeah, we also spray painted like Top Secret over it to try and get this effect that he was in a heavy workload. He'd been like, he's got this strain on him, and his work is just, it's just everywhere around his house. He's like overloaded by it, and it's also quite haunting. It's got like the red note, which we purposely use red because it's like a violent colour. It's related with violence and blood, and that's what the character's done. He's killed a load of people, and maybe not. Well, he did it willingly, but maybe not intentionally, and it's quite tragic. And then obviously, like these weapon notes everywhere, it gives the audience, it tells the audience what they're watching. Like it gives them clues to what's going to happen, and it fits into our age category that we wanted to go towards. As for the stuff like the water and the pills it's quite relatable. Like everyone takes pills, but it's like the mental issues again. It's reinforcing this idea that it's like relatable in a way, but it's also his situation in society is so difficult, and we understand this like when we watch it. Like when we first did it, we were thinking about having the character drink milk with his pills. So this is something to do with mise en scene, because like milk is quite like it's white, it's innocent. When you think of milk, you think of like a baby, you think of like a young character, but we couldn't actually do this in the filming because we forgot the milk. But we ended up just using water. But like I feel like if we actually had done that, then it'd help towards this idea that this character, while a young adult, he's in his like 25, he's about 25. He's supposed to be 25, I should say. He is a character that's only really coming out of his youth. He's still young in a way, and he doesn't really understand what he's like. He understands what he's done, but he's quite naive in a way. That's how the character's supposed to be, and I feel like that's how we use the mise en scene to sort of tell our story instead of just tell it conventionally. And yeah, so like the wide angle shot used at the beginning is quite like, it's used as a like I said earlier, like the location is what do you call it, like the house that you'd usually relate to someone who's being rich and powerful. We use that establishing shot without Wasim in it, with his makeup on, without him in his costume, which tells you what he's like. We did that because it immediately gives you one idea, and then we throw Wasim in with that low angle wide shot of him walking down the stairs in his costume, which is like two contrasting sort of images, and it's quite effective. But he's also his costume and the lighting. We use that as like the makeup costume. We use that to sort of reflect this idea that he is an emotional character. We use the makeup around his eyes, blacken them a little bit for like the depression again. His costume, like the what's it called, dressing gown. It's like laziness. It's sort of like he doesn't care anymore. He's past the point beyond where he is a character that cares about his emotional state. He's done something so bad that he can't go back. His moral code has been passed, and that's like, we sort of tried to get that by using the costume. Once again, like showing the audience, not telling them. Yeah, so like once again, my feedback, like I found that people actually liked that. That was quite good. I'm glad about that. And like the panning shots, the tilts, the way the camera follows the character and isolates him. Like I said earlier, that's really good. It's like interesting how it does that, and I feel like, yeah, like from the feedback, I found that was a positive thing.
Oh, thank you for that, James. It's been Media Mondays. We'll see you soon.